Hey, this is Jamey with Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in Magic the Gathering Zendikar Rising, the new set of Magic the Gathering. I played a draft on Magic Online the other day because I can't play Magic with people in person right now, and I had a lot of fun. Zendikar, the original Zendikar, has one of my favorite mechanisms, and they brought that back for Zendikar Rising, and that is the Landfall mechanism, which is that if you have a card in play with Landfall and you play a land, it triggers that ability, which is just awesome. I love that they thought of this mechanism because so often in Magic you play a land and sometimes it means a lot, especially early in the game. But late in the game, playing a land doesn't really mean a lot, or the timing of playing a land, you just do it automatically at the beginning of your turn. But with Landfall, the timing of when you actually play those lands really matters and can lead to a ton of interesting decisions. So I love this connection in Magic or any other game where you're actually playing some resource, or using a specific resource, or putting a specific resource into play. Having that mean something in terms of the timing of when you do that, I think is really cool. However, my favorite mechanism in the new set is a new card type that hopefully Joe will show up on the screen here, and that it's kind of a card type. It's a double-sided card where one side of the card is a land that comes into play tapped. Essentially a basic land, but it comes into play tapped. The other side is an actual spell. And so when you get these cards, you can decide if you want to play it as a land, and it is then permanently a land, or if you want to play it as the spell side. And this opens up, it's kind of just a crazy thing to put into Magic, because usually in Magic, like if you're doing a draft, you end up with 16 or 17 lands in your deck, and all they do is function as lands, unless you draft a special land type that does something else. But usually, most of them are basic lands. And then you have, 23, 24 other spells. But with this, it completely changes that equation. In my draft, I think I had 4 or 5 cards that operated both as spells and lands. And so for the first time that I've ever done in a draft, I think I had 13 lands. I had 13 basic lands in my deck. Yeah, that was it, 13 basic lands. And then I had 4 cards that operated either as spells or as lands. And this led to a ton of interesting decisions, some of which I didn't even expect, because first was the decision about deck construction. That was interesting. How many lands do I actually put in here, since these cards are now lands and spells? And then once I had these cards in hand, do I play them as spells? Do I play them as lands? There were times where I really needed a land, but I also really wanted the spell for later because they were pretty good spells. And so that was a really great decision too. Do I go ahead and play a land now because I think I need a land now? Or do I hope that I'll draw one in the next turn or so and keep my momentum going, and use that spell at a great time when it can operate as a spell? It is a great decision point. I know I've heard from some people in the Magic community that it's a broken mechanism, or that people might just fill their deck with these spell lands. But because they come into play tapped, I don't know if they're necessarily, they can really hurt your tempo if you fill your deck too much with these, unless you're playing a slower deck where lands early in the game don't really matter that much. But it is a really, really cool card type, just to have a card operate both as a land, if you want it to be permanently, or as a spell if you want it to be, if you want to save it for a spell, or if you want to play it as a spell. And it also really helps the draws later in the game, because normally in Magic, if you draw a land late in the game, you really don't need it. But now you draw that card, and it's a land if you still need it to play a giant spell, or it is a spell that you can then cast. I love that kind of stuff in Magic, when there's cards that are good early in the game and good late in the game, and this is the newest evolution of that type of card. So that is my favorite mechanism in Magic Zendikar Rising. I would love to hear your thoughts on your favorite mechanism in the set, or if you haven't played it but you have some thoughts about Landfall, or this new dual-sided card that is a land on one side and a spell on the other. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks!